Hey, everybody. This is Brent from The Second Look. I have the pleasure of speaking with Anthony Michael. Anthony, a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited to chat with you. I know you've done a couple of films and they're on YouTube, and I've watched them, and I'd love to talk about them individually. But first, I want to start with kind of your background, like where you come from, where you are now, what you want to do, that kind of stuff.
So I've kind of moved around my whole life, so I can't really say I'm like from anywhere necessarily. I was born in Florida, and then we lived all around New York, and then we lived all around Pennsylvania, and I'm in Pennsylvania right now in the South Central area. We grew up pretty modestly, it wasn't anything special. We lived in New York for a while in Staten Island, which is the dumpster fire of New York, so it was pretty rough for a little bit, but we've made our way through to now, and it's doing pretty good, and I'm kind of in a spot where I'm able to finally invest myself into this stuff, and I don't have to worry about my funds being low or anything.
Mhm.
I mean,
Okay.
obviously I still struggle and whatnot, but I just have always loved film. I mean, I grew up watching rated R films with my father when I was real little, so I just have always had a love for gore and really deep storytelling.
Okay. Um, so you were a would you say just a casual moviegoer growing up, or was it more of it was a little bit
It
more?
was a conscious thing. I knew I wanted to make movies. I remember being like 12 years old, asking my parents to use the computer to write scripts and stuff. I mean, they were terrible, and it was like superhero stuff half of the time, but it was there.
Sure, the passion's there.
Yeah.
That's great. So you started writing then. When did you get a camera, or when did you start messing
I
around
got a
with?
camera when I got a stimulus check when I turned 18, and I spent the whole thing on a Panasonic G85, and I started taking pictures with it because I saw something on a YouTube video that Stanley Kubrick started off doing photography to nail down his framing and everything and telling stories frame by frame rather than through a whole video right away. So that
Yeah.
kind of helped with what I've been doing.
Okay. Totally. Yep. He was a photographer, professional photographer, very young, shooting for like magazines, doing some very kind of interesting stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, I think if you knowing that, watching his films and watching how controlled and composed his individual frames are, it's very clear that he has a strong vision for the single frame, what
Yeah.
and what it could do for you. So that's great. You're following some good advice there. Okay, so photography and that how are you still taking photos?
I take photos occasionally now. I do it less like for work because I feel like it kind of corporatized it in a way and it didn't
Mm,
let me like fully be creative with it. So I kind of stepped away from it. But if like a friend messages me and asks me to do something for them, I'll always help. But for the most part, not really. I mean, I was pretty successful when I was doing it. I got a couple weddings done and a music video shoot that wasn't released, but I fully edited and everything. But the guy didn't want to release the song, so I didn't end up releasing the actual video. But it was good practice.
always. Yeah. Everything you do is practice, and
Exactly.
that is something that I think it's hard to accept in the moment. In that moment when you found out, oh, this is not going to happen, your first reaction naturally is going to be disappointment. And but it's practice. It's good. I think it's good also in a way, like when you're in this, especially in filmmaking, because it's so collaborative. Because it's rare for you as the singular artist to take an idea all the way to completion and have it be completely you. You have to compromise along the way.
Absolutely.
So that's the kind of the ultimate compromise, is just to not release it. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it
All
was
right.
tough.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, so photography. Now, what's your status these days? Are you've got a couple short films under your belt. What's your plan from now on?
Well, I don't want to say too much about what's in the future, but I did just have a meeting with my cinematographer the other night, and I went out today to get some wardrobe for my next project, which I'll be filming within the next couple weeks. I mean, we're gonna do some rehearsal shoots next week on Thursday. We're planning on doing a horror short film, so that'll be interesting. It'll be easier to be a little bit more creative with that because the horror genre is very malleable.
Yeah. Yeah, explain that. Like, talk more about that.
It's gonna be like a abstract psychological kind of horror, like a liminal space kind of thing.
Okay.
Kind of inspired by like David Lynch and 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'm very big on like older movies because I like the way that they just have such like a grandiose to them. Like they feel so much bigger than they actually are, if that makes sense.
Oh, of course. Yeah, 2001 is is not a movie.
The-
It's like this it's an opera on screen.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. So David Lynch in 2001, that's a fantastic combo. And you wrote the script.
I did, yes. Yep.
Okay.
I wrote it in about maybe 2 weeks to finish it. I wrote the idea down, like jotted it down in my notes, and went back to it after like a couple of days and sat on it,
Mhm.
wrote it out, and now we're getting into the process of actually making it, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
For a long time, I had a problem with like I tried to think it through the whole way to try and like jump myself through the loopholes I'd have to when I got there. But eventually I realized to a point that thinking my way through it is never going to prepare me enough for what's actually going to happen because it's going to completely be different than anything I expected. And I
Mm.
was such a perfectionist about everything. I wanted everything to be a straight through line vision, but I know it's never going to be that way once it gets to the cutting board.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's that compromise. It's kind of a harsh reality for filmmakers, I think. To
It's a shot to the ego. You have
Yeah.
to really be able to humble yourself to be able to sit there with someone that also has a creative vision for you and wants to see something good out of it, and you have to compromise.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, writers, you sit down with your thoughts. It's just you and the page, and that's it. And painters, same thing. But we have to work with people, and we have
Exactly.
to share the vision. We have to make sure that they understand your vision so that they can execute it. But yeah, they're artists themselves, and they have certain things that they want to bring to the table. They think will help, and it's that negotiation that makes good collaborators great. You know,
Yes.
once you have that, you're kind of unstoppable. So you said you have your cinematographer. Where did you meet this person?
I met him through a friend that I made when I was working at a movie theater, one of my employees when I was a supervisor.
Okay.
So me and him went to a concert after I had left that job, and then maybe like 2, 3 years later now, he posted a Instagram post with him, and I saw the pictures, and I was pretty shocked at how good they were, so I messaged him, and we ended up working together on my most recent project.
Awesome. Yeah, like I think meeting people, meeting these collaborators is something that we're all trying to do at all times. So
Exactly.
yeah, good to it's always good to hear how these things come about. So I guess I'm assuming you didn't go to any film school officially, right?
No, I did not. I've been pretty much self-taught on YouTube with Skillshare and whatnot.
Okay. Talk me through that. Was it a financial thing? Why didn't you go?
It was a financial thing. I mean, growing up, my parents haven't always had the most money, and neither have I. So it was more of like, do I want to take on that debt for something that's, because I don't want to say it's something that you don't need school for, because I'm sure the schooling helps a lot with like the technical aspects of stuff. But for the creative side of it, I feel like you don't really need someone to tell you what to do with your own ideas. I mean, you can always get advice and feedback and make sure that your ideas are working and that it all makes sense and flows right. But for the most part, I mean, it's pretty easy to tell whether an idea is good or not and whether your creative ideas are coming from a good place or a bad place. So I just always thought I would just be paying for networking, which I could just do by making the films and putting them out there and just seeing if people like it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. The that whole, I guess, plan that you just laid out, wasn't really an option 20 years ago, right? Like
No,
you
yeah.
Like YouTube did not exist. Putting your movies out online was much more difficult. So it is interesting how that those technological advances have allowed for a whole new kind of path for people to get what they need to get. And the financial thing is a real problem. It's a real
Yeah.
thing. I'm still paying for my student loans. This is a real thing. Okay, so and how was your self education? Um, were you a good self student?
I consume media about films all the time. I
Mm,
watch this one YouTube channel called Creative Minds, and they do some singular. The guy does some great videos. He'll talk about any kind of art, really, but it always is able to be converted to whatever art form you're interested in, if that makes
mm,
sense.
sure.
It makes
Yeah.
it very broad.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Universal, because there's a lot of universal concepts in fine art that apply to film, in music that apply to music in film.
I like Rick Rubin as well. Rick Rubin, he's mostly into music, but he's just a great like creative person. He said a quote once where he said something along the lines of you're successful when you release your art, not when people receive it well or anything, because it's the passion of art. I mean, once you put your art out there, it's exactly right. You're successful because you finished a piece of art, and that's a feat in itself. Especially with films, it's such a difficult thing to be able to get so many people into a room, even just three alone, like I did. It's a difficult task because you have to line up schedules, you have to make sure that everybody's comfortable with what they're doing, and you have to make sure that they have the time to sit there and they're not going to think that you're just wasting their time. It's difficult. It's very difficult. And then even to make something good, like let alone make it.
Right. No, I love that quote. I think yes, the completion of a piece of anything, a song, a film. But you're right. A finished film is much harder and much more special than I think people realize, because you're working with people. Everyone has their own agendas and schedules. At this level, you're probably not paying them, so it's a favor, but you have to feed them and you have to hope that they're as invested in bringing their A game as you are. Whereas the higher up you go, you have a budget, you can pay people, maybe, but they've also got a career that they're working towards, and they're not just I'm not saying this is what happened to you, but just from my experience, for a lot of people, you're usually just working with friends or family,
Yep.
or people who, really it's just a pure favor. They're not doing it for themselves, maybe at all. And that's hard to work with as well. Okay, I wanted to talk about I guess your first film, Somewhere in Time.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Like, where did that come from? What was the goal?
That was more of just kind of stretching my legs and seeing how people would receive me posting something along those lines. And kind of just, it's kind of just like a test kind of thing, if that makes sense. I shot
Yeah,
it. I liked the way it looked. So I wanted to post it and I just enjoyed it.
right. No, it is great. Did you do any post coloring on this?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks great. Like that's the best part is the color for sure. I just it's kind of a mood atmosphere experiment, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I
Kind of
think
like our housey.
yeah, yeah, and I think I think that lines up with what you were talking about earlier about David Lynch or Stanley Kubrick, who are very, I mean, the masters at creating a mood and an atmosphere in a location. So I think yeah, that was a pretty successful test.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, and then the second one, uh, La Lutte,
Yes.
is that what it is?
La Lutte.
La Lutte.
Yes.
Okay, this has a little bit more story, a little bit more of a form to it. Tell me kind of where this one came from.
So I was scrolling through TikTok and I was just thinking, what can I do that would be simple but effective with a short film to like kind of go out the gate with for my followers that already know me now. And what I landed on was a simple romance story because I had recently watched In the Mood for Love and that was heavy on my brain. So that kind of inspired me to do something romantic. And then it just kind of changed into something else when I actually sat down to write it. And it became a story about how a man could be so obsessed for a cold shoulder, if that makes sense. How certain men they like the chase, but too much to a detriment. So I
Yeah.
thought it would be interesting to shoot it in an art housey kind of way.
Mhm. Okay. I mean, it is abstract, it is kind of, uh, very interpretable.
Yes, that's what I was going for too. I don't like to make like I like through stories that you can kind of get like a through line, but I don't like to overbearingly tell people what's going on, if that makes sense.
Sure. No, no, that's you're inviting the audience to become more active in their consumption, not just passive, just sitting there letting, the story and everything wash over them. You're asking them to participate, and
Exactly.
that's it's when it works, and when it yeah, I guess when it works, the audience appreciates that, I think, for
Yes.
most of the time. There are, of course, there's people who just wanna be entertained, and they don't wanna have to feel like they have to stretch their mental muscles, but people who are really interested in the medium, in the form, I think, that's really what they want is an opportunity to, um, engage, and not just, an excuse to zone out for 2 hours or whatever.
Exactly.
But yeah, now that you've explained it, the premise, I get it. I see it. Now
Yeah.
it's interesting, like, to where how you started with this idea and how the execution, like the presentation, because it's not a direct line, I think.
Yeah.
What, can you walk me through the process of, like, that idea, and like how, for example, for we're gonna link to this film in the video for people to watch it, so, and I highly recommend that you do. But it's basically, you have some close-ups of a guy, but in black and white, and different lighting scenarios and different scenes almost.
Yeah.
So I'm just always curious how, especially when it's not a one-to-one, here's the idea, here's the story, and I can clearly see it. I want to know how you got there, like if you can explain it, or want to explain it.
So initially, I was gonna do something kind of more like Jackie Brownish and make it a little bit longer,
Mm,
but I wanted to kind of steer away from that because I felt like that was gonna make it what's the word? Maybe a little bit too bland because it would be too straightforward and like everybody's seen that before.
mm.
So I decided to kind of try and make it more abstract and tried to pull more and more details out of it as I was writing it and just make it shorter. And that's pretty much what I ended up with. And when we were in the editing room, that's when I decided to do the black and white. Because initially we graded it so that it would be a little bit more brighter, but I wanted more greens in it. And we ended up shooting where it's winter time. So it's harder to get greens when you got brown leaves covering everything. So we decided to opt for the black and white for those shots. Plus, I thought it kind of gave more of like a liminal vibe to it, like a backrooms kind of thing where it's like in his head rather than in reality. Kinda
Yes.
like, Memento, how they flip-flop from color to black and white.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I get that. I think that was the right choice. It's not just the black and white, but the editing, the I guess the fragmentation of it, the repetition. Those techniques definitely came across as a internal process that this
Yeah.
character was going through, um, and a very interesting way to do it. Again, the fact that there's different lighting on him in different shots, I think is really interesting, because that's just another extra layer of maybe some, I don't know, yeah, interiority or abstractness or some sort of ambiguity about what's
I wanted to
happening.
give it a little bit of like an unsettling feeling, like you weren't like resting your eyes anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. And for yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, it's only 30 seconds long, you know?
Yes.
And I know you're talking about making it longer and why making it shorter made more sense. I think you were able to pack in a lot in 30 seconds that feels like a complete thing, even at 30 seconds. Um, there's some humor to it too, right? There's a kind of a like a tongue in cheek. I mean, the ending
Yeah,
specifically.
that was the Pam Grier coming out there. That was definitely some Tarantino inspiration with the line, because I thought of the like snappiness from the beginning of Pulp Fiction when they jump up on the table and they're ready to rob the place. Like it's very quick and to the point at that point.
Right, right. No, no, I think it's great. It's very interesting.
I
So,
appreciate that. That means the
yeah,
world.
yeah. Um, and I guess it sounds like the next one, the horror film, might be similarly constructed. I mean, the same. This may be the same basic techniques. Genre.
It'll be ambiguous around the same, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know running time on that one yet? At this point?
I'm thinking somewhere around a minute, minute 30 maybe.
Mm.
It'll definitely be a lot longer.
Yeah,
I have more scenes planned out and shots, and I mean, to build tension, you kind of have to hold on scenes a little bit longer than you normally would. So,
that's true. That's true. I mean,
I will say it's all on one location.
okay. Was that by design or is that what you can just what you can get? Like
It
how
was
did you
a challenge to myself. I wanted to try and do a story with someone stuck in one room.
I love that because I think creative limitations are thing is something that people don't give themselves much. I think when you're writing, you're conceiving. I mean, let's say you have this. Let's say you have a budget and you can just do whatever you want, and then you do whatever you want. But I always like there's creative limitations that are imposed upon you. You don't have a budget, you don't have a location, you don't have these things, and you have to kind of creatively get around those things. But I it sounds like what you just described is you put that challenge on yourself. You could
Yes.
have gone to more locations, but this was a challenge. And I think I just want to pull that takeaway out for people watching or listening.
I'll hop on that and I'll say, for the longest time, I always doubted myself with short films. I always told myself that it was something I couldn't do, because I always came up with these grand ideas for big extended feature films, and I never thought it would be something for me to do a short film. So I never really gave myself those creative blocks. I kind of just let myself write feature films and didn't think anything of it, and didn't think maybe I should do short films so that I can actually make it and put it out there for people. So it took a little bit, but once I started giving myself those kind of like challenges, it made it so much easier to do it, because I wanted to really prove to myself that I am what I think I am as a filmmaker. So it helps out a lot.
And that's great. Yeah, well said. It's an interesting trajectory, right? To start big, but then to go small.
Yeah.
It's usually the opposite. But yeah, it sounds like putting all your kind of creative energy into a smaller but practical, doable project. Because as we talked about earlier, finishing something is priceless, and it kind of gives you that momentum, no matter how big it is, to move
Yep.
on to the next one.
You're exactly right.
Okay. So you have a DP. Is that it? You said
Well, for this one, I am getting a crew together for some prosthetic makeup, and I'll have a lot more of a cast this time. I'll have probably over 5 people for the cast. I'll have an on-set photographer, my DP, and then me there directing.
Okay.
So it's definitely going to be a little bit bigger of a production this time than it was last time for sure.
Yeah, and more pre-production, I assume?
Yes, yeah, definitely. This time we're doing some rehearsal shoots so that we can get the lighting down and everything and make sure that everything is like overshot so that we don't have any excuses when it comes to the cutting room.
Yeah, right.
That's a big thing. Overshoot. Overshoot is probably the best advice I've ever gotten because you never have enough clips.
Yes, yes, that's great. Yeah. It's because there's some filmmakers, especially the the big timers, right? The who've been doing it for decades and whatever. And they don't shot list and they just show up on set and they know what they want and they just take, just get what they want and then they leave. And they don't overshoot
Yeah.
because for some people that's a sign of indecision, right? That you don't know what you want and that
I
you're
think that ties back to like the having to be humble about it and take the L and just go with it.
honestly, yeah, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that sentiment that I've heard from filmmakers that shooting coverage is somehow a bad thing. If you have the time, if you have the resources, to do it that way, uh, yeah, there's really no reason.
Yeah, there's no reason not to, because then if you miss a shot or you need it, or you have to reshoot something and you have to bring everybody back, then it's just a hassle. Especially when you're at my level and you have no payment for these people, and you just have to give them food for them to show up, and sometimes that doesn't always work, or schedules don't always line up. So it's always best to just try and get what you can when you have everybody there.
Yes, yes. I'm I've made some films. I don't even call myself a filmmaker. It's I'm a film person. I'm a film educator. But anyways, the last short I did shoot, I forgot a shot. I forgot to get a shot. Like it wasn't even we had the time. We just kind of wrapped and we went home and thought everything was great. And it's when you get into editing and you start reviewing, like, this is great. Here's all my footage, and then it's like, wait, where's that? Where's that?
Yeah.
and and that was accidental. But in the other case, it's like, don't just assume that you have it.
Yeah.
uh I don't know, it's hard to. I don't want you to just doubt yourself constantly. You should be.
It's just good luck to take that extra take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, because you don't realize what you have or don't have at the moment. You might think it's there, you might think it's perfect, but then there's something in the background that you weren't paying attention to, or for whatever reason you would want that extra take, and then you don't know what could come extra that you didn't plan on in that extra take. So yeah, I'm gonna second your advice. Shoot as much as you can within reason.
Yeah.
Don't abuse your crew and keep them there for 14 hours when unnecessarily.
Absolutely.
But yeah. Okay. Great advice. Oh, I was gonna ask you. We're gonna cut this out.
Go for it.
Hmm. Okay. So for this next project, do you have any festival plans or any sort of like, I want to, use it to do this or to get it over here?
I'm not too sure. I'd have to do a little bit of research into what film festivals exactly I'd want to submit it to, because I do think that this one will be worthy of a film festival, just because we've learned a lot from the last one, and the reception I got from the last one seems to be pretty good so far. So I'm pretty stoked for this one. I think we've got a good crew together, and I think my lead actor is going to kill it because he is a character in real life.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. It would be nice, but that also costs money. So it depends on when the season's open and if I can get it in there. And I'm not sure. Some of them I know they like to hold the rights for the premiere if you submit it, so you have to wait to premiere it until after they accept it or reject it. And part of me is I know is going to want to release it within a couple weeks of finishing editing. So it's going to be hard, but I think that's something I'll have to sit down and talk with my cinematographer and my cast and crew about and figure out how they feel about it, whether they want it to be released or
Mm.
whether they think it's worthy of going into a film festival circuit.
Yeah, that's nice of you to include them in that process. It's because yeah, I think they would want to say, they would have an opinion.
I mean, once it's filmed, at that point, it's as much their movie as it is mine because they played a major part in it. It's my vision, but they're bringing it to life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I love that. That's great. Casting. How did you go about casting? Because I know we were talking earlier about oftentimes we're limited to friends and family. Was that the case here, or did you have like an actual casting process?
I had a couple people offer me to work with me, and I had a couple of them that I had like phone interviews with, and I would talk with them over the phone, just texts, and ask them questions about their experience with that kind of stuff and their confidence level. And I ended up hanging out with my lead actor for this part today when we went to go look for wardrobe because I wanted to kind of get more of a feel for it and see if I was going to keep him as lead because it was more up in the air. After seeing how he is as a person, I knew 100% he was gonna kill it in the role because I need someone that's a little bit more animated.
Mm. Hmm. Okay,
And
that's great.
sometimes when I'm writing, I like to think with a person in mind for the character, and that kinda helps me determine from there people that I know that relate to an actor I think of or an actress I think of.
Okay. And you found this guy to be pretty close to what you had in mind as you wrote it.
Yes, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Wow, that's special. That's rare right there. Is
Yeah,
because
it's definitely good luck.
yeah, because you have that vision, you have that impression, especially as the writer. They kind of are born in this way, and now you have to try to find a person to fit that.
Yep.
So casting is like the first compromise of many that you have to deal with, and kind of divorce yourself from what you had in mind first, and now make it work for whoever you do find. But in this case, you lucked out. That's great.
Definitely big time.
All right. So you're working in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
I'm always curious about kind of the community or the environment of where from, because I've been talking to people literally all over the world. What's the film making community like where you're at, and is it limited? Is it small but robust? Like what's it like?
I would I would say in my area, in my like closest vicinity, it's not really anything big. There's a few people here and there trying to go after it, and I respect them because it is tough to even see a way out of here when it's so I don't want to say desolate, but it is very like small town mind oriented. Nobody wants to think outside of the box much, but we have our little creative group that does our thing out here. We have a studio that one of our buddies rents and they sell candies and stuff out of there. They have a recording studio, they have a photography studio. It's pretty cool. So it's small but robust, I'd say. That's a good description of it.
Yeah, that's great because I mean not every place is a hub, and you kind of have to.
I will say I am lucky because I have easy access to all three major cities in New England, which is New York City, Philly, and DC. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
true.
good spot for sure.
Yeah, you're not you're not in the thick of it, but you have connections, or you have resources. I'm sure, I guess depending on exactly where you are, but you could put
Yeah.
out casting notices in those places. You'd find somebody willing to come to you,
Yeah.
or you go to them. Um, are you? I just clicked for me. Are you a George Romero fan?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a deep cut. Wow. That's
I
a
mean,
really deep cut.
I don't know many Pennsylvania filmmakers who are known for being from Pennsylvania, but he's one of them.
Yeah,
And you're a horror guy,
yeah.
so there's a I don't know. There's something in the air over there for
There's been
this.
a couple horror movies that have been filmed here, actually, and a couple that haven't been filmed far. I think the Blair Witch Hunt. I think that was filmed not too far down in Maryland.
Right. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, there's some and the locations in that movie, in Romero's movies, just I guess Northeast in general is just as a place, as a region, is really fit for those kinds of stories.
Yeah.
That's that's an easy. You just go outside and
Seriously, yeah, there's woods everywhere and it's always creepy.
um okay, so what's that's the what's the trajectory here for you? Like 5 years, 10 years from now, what are we doing? Where are we at?
5 years? It's funny you say that. I was actually just talking with my buddy. Was telling him in 5, 10 years, I would like to be in Italy on the Amalfi Coast with a typewriter writing a feature film for a studio of some kind, because that would be the dream.
Wow, I was gonna say to be more specific, but that's that's pretty specific.
Yeah, I've thought about it for a while, and that would definitely be where I would want to end up.
Okay. Okay, so does that mean then that you're more of a screenwriter than a director?
I do really love writing. I wouldn't mind being a full-time writer, but I would like to write and direct all my projects. That would be the dream.
Right. So you're on the Amalfi Coast. You're writing a screenplay for a studio that you're going to direct.
Yes, there you go. That's yeah.
Got it. Why the Amalfi Coast? I assume you've been.
I haven't, but it's beautiful.
All right. So Anthony, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to meet you.
It was a
I'm
pleasure to meet
very
you as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited for you. I will see you on the Amalfi Coast in 5 to 10 years. Definitely check out your work. If again, these will be linked. Your channel will be linked in the description. I'd really love to check out the upcoming horror film. So send it my way as soon as possible. I won't tell any film festivals that you send it.
Absolutely, I got you.
All right, Anthony. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
Hey, you too. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye bye.